we are gonna move ahead by locking the graphics 2 layer and revealing the graphics 3. This way we are gonna work further on the rest of the shapes, and I'm gonna get started just by using my eyedropper tool to recolor them with one of the gradients. I'm gonna send this shape to the back, so it's behind the smaller shape that's at the front. Let's pick yellow, let's say, instead, and I'm gonna swap also the order of those two shades. I'm gonna edit the gradient and I'm gonna apply it in a slightly different direction. I'm gonna make this one red so it's a bit more balanced with that shape on the other side, and turn the gradient, let's say 90 degrees, or actually minus 90, so the red on top. Even perhaps a bit more yellow would be good. Last layer, graphics 1. I'm gonna grab all of them, recolor them with one of the gradients, and start working on each of them separately for the gradients that they work better. Let's go edit gradient, and I'm gonna apply it to the very edge. A variety is always a good approach, so having just slightly different ones. Just gonna make it solid color, actually. It's too small and perhaps it doesn't need as much detail. Let's bring this one to the front. And I'm gonna make this one just solid color too. Arrange center back. And this one solid color as well. So just to have a bit of like a variety. I'm actually gonna use this shape here in order to create a mesh. Currently my line is red and the shape is magenta, so it's not really visible. Go ahead and switch the color of the layer lines to blue. I'm gonna grab the mesh tool, it's right here on the toolbar, or the letter U is the shortcut, and I'm gonna go ahead and apply a grid within the shape. Make it as tidy as you can, and by tidy I mean like as many vertical and horizontal lines as you can. Don't do things like this, because this is a messy grid that it won't allow you to smoothly include color within your shape. And we are going to see as we are working on that what do I mean by that. So I'm going to bring in some lighter tones of this green. Let's leave it with a minimum possible grid, and then we can add later on if we feel like that. I'm gonna grab those anchor points here on this side and color this side yellow. With the eyedropper tool, I'm sampling around like different areas so I can recolor my shape. I'm just adjusting a bit the handles so I can give a nice smooth transition between the different colors around. Zooming out and in a bit, sometimes it helps to have a look from farther. I think it's almost there, it's quite interesting. Let's go ahead and unlock all. And lock this shape instead and start working on the next one. Great, that feels already quite three-dimensional and quite interesting as a shape. One more, I'm just gonna paint it again magenta. Add with my mesh tool simple grid, we don't need anything too complicated. So using the eyedropper and my white arrow to grab samples of colors from around and make the transitions as smooth as possible. Instead of recoloring all of them, I'm gonna grab this one and duplicate to use it as well instead of the other shape. Right click, arrange, bring to front, or feel free to use the shortcuts. I'm just gonna turn it around a bit and scale it so we can apply it here. I'm gonna just get rid of that and replace it with a shape that has already been colored. And even a bit darker, I think, in this occasion here, since it has a different color at the back, so it stands out a bit more. One last shape. So the next step will be to bring in a background layer. I'm gonna create an extra layer, call it background, bring it to the very bottom, create a rectangle, and try to see like what color we should use. Purple works quite well, blue as well, but I quite like this cream pink color, so let's stick with that one. Now the next step will be to turn this composition to a pattern. As we're already aware of, all you need to do is just grab your illustrations. So I'm going to lock the background, unlock everything else on my canvas, grab the whole composition, open the swatches, and just drag and drop it within the swatches. You see here that I have already my icon with the pattern. Let's give it a try as well. And let's have a look on how it looks like. Perfect. What I usually suggest is not to include the background within the pattern, because sometimes you have some little white lines where the tiles of the pattern touching one another. It's better to just add it afterwards as a different shape behind your mockup or the pattern itself. Let's work on the mockup a bit. So I'm gonna lock all the layers and I'm gonna create a new one that I'm gonna call mockup. I'm gonna drag and drop from my desktop this little sketch that I did of a sock that I'm gonna use in order to trace and apply my pattern with it. I'm gonna duplicate the artboard just by dragging it while having Alt and Shift key selected. Everything was locked, so it didn't bring in any of the elements of the previous canvas. I'm gonna scale down a bit my illustration here, lock it, and start tracing it. Again, my pen tool shortcut is letter P, and then work around the edges of the socks. We are using the pattern as our color, which is not really comfy, so I'm gonna switch it quickly. Go as well to the stroke to increase it so we can see the line. Having the command key, hold it down, I can use quickly my white arrow to correct any anchor points that I didn't place properly straight away. I don't really mind that the shapes are overlapping here because one of the parts is going to be behind the other, so it won't be visible. You can use the Pathfinder if you want to be precise here on the carve, but again, as I said, it doesn't really matter because it's going to get hidden. So I'm gonna go Object, Unlock to unlock my picture, delete it since we don't really need the reference anymore, and start working on creating the pattern itself. I'm gonna color the sock this pinkish that we decided that's gonna be our background. I'm gonna adjust slightly my curves so they feel quite smooth, especially at the points where the two different shapes are connecting. and make sure that this is not happening here, so they're not going one shape outside the other. I think here things are working pretty well. So I'm gonna need to send this one at the back and make this a bit, perhaps a bit more straight, the edge here. I'm gonna duplicate now the main shape by pressing Command C and Command F to paste it in place, and I'm gonna select the swatch with our pattern. Let's make a square canvas. We don't really need a rectangle canvas since we just have a sock. And let's also bring in a background color. I'm gonna do those details like black so they stand out quite a lot. And now let's work a bit on the pattern. So firstly, I'm gonna double click so I can see the pattern and how it tiles, which I don't really like the gaps here. So I'm gonna select from the grid type something like hexagon that they start overlapping. Oh, that's even better. Okay, so let's stick with that one. You can of course like switch colors and anything you like in this pattern, but I feel I'm quite happy with that. And now what I need to do is right click, transform and scale. On the pop-up panel here, make sure you have the transform object disabled since we don't want to transform the size of the sock. And transform pattern enabled, preview, and let's do like 50%. And let's have a look on how it looks like. That's quite nice. We can also move it around. So right click, transform and move. Make sure transform object is disabled. And you can just move it with this wheel if you want to. Or by playing with the pixels at the very top. So I think somewhere there it's quite good. If I'm happy with how it's been positioned, I can go Object, Expand, and double click to get within the pattern, and I can grab now the tiles and move them around if I want to. Or I can grab shapes like this one that doesn't feel great, and with my right arrow select the shape, and with the backspace you can actually delete it. Now we have our pattern and we are almost done. Another thing that we can do is have a look on the colors again. So I'm gonna double click on the pattern, select all the parts of it, go to Window, Color Guide. I'm gonna go ahead and create a new color group with all the colors that we used in the composition. I'm gonna go again to the Color Guide. It's gonna allow me by pressing that icon to access the palette as it is and just randomly change the order of the colors that I'm using, which I think in that case it doesn't work as well. So I'm gonna cancel that and go ahead, go back again to that panel and try on the edit side if I would move and change all the colors together, how it would look like. So spending some time trying to figure out which one is the best possible palette for your design is quite important. It can really change the mood and how the whole composition looks like. And once you're happy with the palette, you just press OK. And done, and composition is ready. I hope you enjoyed this practical phase, and I cannot wait to see your work on the forum. In the next course, I'm gonna show you all about the drawing tools.